This is part 4 of our 4-part study on prophetic insights into the greeting Shabbat Shalom. Now, before the various captivities gave opportunity for assimilation to the surrounding nations' languages, the oldest version of the Hebrew alphabet was composed of letters which each had meaning. The oldest version of this alphabet available to us today is the pictographic Hebrew, or Ibrayet. The Aleph and the Tav are the first and the last letters of this ancient Hebrew alphabet. The Aleph looks like an ox head as a symbol of strength, and the Tav looks like a nail driven into place, therefore fixing and affirming a covenant, and therefore seen as a mark or sign of covenant. Although religious tradition by means of the modern Israeli language has long held the Aleph Tav are simply grammatical symbols without meaning or significance, it has recently been discovered that the Aleph Tav appears throughout Scripture at places that are significant of matters of covenant. It does not take long to see that it is no matter of coincidence or grammar where the Aleph and the Tav appear in Scripture. It is as though the Most High Yahuwah, our Elohim, is placing His signature at certain junctures in the unfolding of His master plan so as to emphasize that which is His perfect will according to the covenant He made with Himself, which explains the connection between predestination and Shabbat Shalom, or Sabbath rest and completion. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 10. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, set apart. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah, your Elohim. Again, that's Exodus 20, verses 8 through 10. Now, the Shabbat has to do with Echad, which means one. This bridge is one, even if we see 7 sections. It is one. If it's not one, then it is not a bridge that you would want to trust to cross over on. And as the builder of the bridge started building the bridge, each section needed what was in the previous section to build and traverse the Great Divide. So, we just read Exodus 20, verses 8 through 10. Again, that was 6 days you shall do all your work, and the 7th day is the Shabbat to Yahuwah. Now, in Genesis 1:5, we see something very interesting, which may shed some light on predestination and the Shabbat, or Sabbath. In Genesis 1:5, and the evening and the morning was the first day. Okay, that was a quote. And the evening and the morning was the first day. That's Genesis 1:5. But that's not the literal translation. And sometimes when rendering a translation, a translator can lean a little too much toward the culture of the person you're translating for and miss something that was intended in the culture of the translated language. In this case, the literal meaning is day 1, not first day. And that's important because right there in Genesis 1, we have an introduction to the word echad and the concept of oneness expressed by this particular Hebrew word. Now, this is important because there is another Hebrew word that is translated as the word one, and it is yaqid. Yaqid is used for the number one in singularity. However, the word echad makes reference to one as a composite made up of various parts or elements. In Galatians 5, verses 22 to 23, we see the concept of echad again and the revelation of the fruit of the Spirit expressed as 9 attributes or manifestations of one fruit. The text clearly says fruit and not fruits, plural, but fruit, singular, and there is a singular verb. And of course we see the same in Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. The key insight is the use of a singular verb. An example: your spirit is not your soul, and your soul is not your body. But these are all parts of one being. And so it is revealed to us throughout Scripture and precisely expressed in Deuteronomy 6:4 that the Most High is not a trinity of 3 separate beings, but rather He who is Spirit sent His Word, born of His heart, to bear and propagate His name unto the birth of many sons in His name. And in Deuteronomy 5, verses 12 through 14, we are admonished to keep the 7th day holy, Kodesh, not mixed with anything else, set apart. And so it is that throughout Scripture we see the pattern of the number 7 regarding wholeness and completion. And in the case of our study at hand, dedicated at one with the good work that He has begun in us. Genesis 2:3. And Elohim blessed the 7th day, and hallowed it, because that in it He rested from all His work which Elohim had created to make. Again, that's Genesis 2:3. Philippians 1:6. Being confident of this very thing, that He which has begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Yahushua HaMashiach. Again, Philippians 1:6. So, as we see, Shabbat Shalom has to do with predestination. And an example of that is cooking. Everything which defines the finished product is in the mix from the very beginning. The cook simply needs to apply heat so that what's in the mix can react to the heat and combination of ingredients and become what it is. At the appointed time, from a position of rest and confidence, the cook removes the finished product from the refinement of the surrounding heat. And so it is in the life of one who is born into the kingdom, or rather where the kingdom is born in us. The heat is the heat of the circumstances of life which come to challenge the word of the Most High with the question, has Yah said? when truly Yah has said. The fruit of the Spirit is love, which manifests itself in 9 ways, which ultimately reveals self-control. Not self-esteem, but self-control. We are to esteem self, which is the flesh, as dead to sin and alive to Messiah, or Christ. So again, the Shabbat has to do with sanctification, the process of refinement, and predestination, because it's all in the mix. Now, parables are used as a tool of illustration in discussing spiritual truths, which, although they are invisible, they transcend time and are eternal. And so, for the purposes of illustration, we have these pictures presented to us to illustrate the spiritual concepts of sanctification and predestination according to Scripture. And so we see that the Shabbat has to do with the process of refinement or sanctification, which makes manifest that which is in us already by way of predestination. It's what we have in us by way of a seed. In this case, it is the unadulterated seed of the Word of Yah. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahuwah, your Elohim, in vain, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. That's Deuteronomy 5:11. Now that word vain, it's Strong's Concordance number H7723. Vain in the sense of desolating, ruin, figuratively of idolatry and uselessness. So we are admonished to endure the process from faith to faith and from glory to glory. Again, that's Deuteronomy 5:11, and it comes at the end of talking about idolatry and at the beginning of talking about guarding the Sabbath or Shabbat. Do not pervert by adding to or taking away. Endure the process and maintain the purity of the faith. In fact, in Matthew 17:20, the reference made to having faith as a mustard seed is generally considered to be making reference to the size of the mustard seed, since the mustard seed is indeed one of the smallest seeds. It is one of the smallest seeds that exists. However, in this verse, size is not the only characteristic of this particular seed which is being made reference to, because there is another very important characteristic of the mustard seed which was being used to reveal the kind of faith that is required of us, and that is that the mustard seed cannot be mixed or crossbred with another seed and be made a hybrid seed. And so it is that we are admonished not to mix the word of the Most High with the religious traditions of man, but rather we are to maintain the purity of our faith to the end. The finished product has all of the original ingredients to become what it is, and that's for the benefit of others. Again, Shabbat Shalom, declaring his word to Jacob, his laws and his right rulings to Israel. Shabbat Shalom, Yasharal.